Impression, basis of strong brand.
You know that the first day I read these scriptures where some people came to Jesus and they asked Jesus, is it lawful for us to pay tax to Caesar or not? And Jesus asked them to bring a coin. And he asked them a question that whose inscription is on this coin? And he said Caesar. He now said, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. A cord struck on my inside. And that cord is that people only give to you in the direction of the image where your impression is strongest. That image could be on a product, it could be on the services, but resources will flow towards you in the direction where your image of a good or a services is strongest. Because Jesus said, whose image is on this coin? He said Caesar. He therefore said, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So the question I want to ask you is this: where is your product or your service having the strongest impression? If I say, for example, Michael, many people know so many Michael, but the Michael that comes to their mind is Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan. Why is it Michael Jackson? It's about he was called the king of the king of pop. Why is it Michael Jordan? He was called the king of basketball. So when you say Michael, the impression that comes to people is Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan, because these two guys have created a very strong impression in their field. If you say Thomas, people talk about Thomas Alva Edison. Thomas Alva Edison, because his impression about invention is very strong. So the question is this: when people call your name, what does it remind people of? You may say that the examples I've given so far, they are global examples. In your own space, when people mention your name, does it remind people of a product or a services? If it doesn't remind people of a product or a services, it simply means that your impression is not strong in that area. So question: how do you create a very strong impression in a particular field? And that is one of the fundamental things I want to explain to you today. So in your own local sphere, what are those things that will cause your impression to be very strong? People talk about so many things, but the one I want to talk about today is this: you must be able to have multiple forms of the same thing. Multiple forms of the same thing. So that when people look in this direction, they see you. When people look in that direction, they see you. It doesn't mean you should spread yourself thin. There's a popular adage that says that jack of all trade, master of none. Because you see the person today in education, another day is in IT, another day is in music, he's spreading himself thin. But people that have different forms of the same thing, when people think of doing different activity in that particular area, they are the people that find it easy for them to come to their mind. For example, if you talk about a popular eatery in Nigeria, which is called The Place has had so many competition. Why is that the competition is very hard for the competition to sweep them off? Because The Place has different form of a particular product, and that product is rice. They have about 8 different forms of rice, whether it's Asun rice, whether it's village rice, whether it's pepper soup rice, whether it's Chinese rice, whether it's this rice. So when people think about rice, they go to The Place. It is what we call different forms of the same thing. If you are an educator and the only place where you strike the chords to people is in the classroom, you are simply limiting your ability to earn at the peak in that area. One of the very successful educators today in Nigeria, of course in Lagos, is this woman that owns this school, Middle Up. So you have Middle Up having different forms of the same thing. Middle Up Training Academy for teachers, Middle Up Consulting, Middle Up School. It is the same form of different things, because God is so blessed that the capacity He has given you has an ability to have different expressions in the same thing. So if you talk about Michael Jackson, you talk about Michael Jackson singing, you talk about Michael Jackson in movie, You talk about Michael Jackson in movie. You talk about Michael Jackson in documentary. But all of those things revolve around the same thing, his ability to sing. Some people talk about Michael Jordan, basketball, Michael Jordan, shoes, Michael Jordan in his fashion house. So these are different forms of the same thing. So if you want to create a very firm impression of yourself in a particular field, you must begin to understand that you have to go deep in that area. And the thing that will test ability to go deep in a particular field is if you can create different forms of the same thing in that area. So understand today that when people ask you, should we give unto you? It is only possible if they have an impression of you in that particular field. That is when their resources is going to come in your direction. Okay, so I believe that some of those things I've shared today is going to go a long way to help you. All right, we get to see some other time.